Welcome to Fitzdog Radio. Big day in the Fitzsimmons household, not in our household. A member of our household, Owen Fitzsimmons, had a birthday. My son turned 20 fucking 2. How old am I? Damn. So he's no longer like a teen, or even 21. You kind of still think of as like kind of a teenager, but he's 22. He's graduating college in the spring, and he's a man. My boy is a man. And I don't mean that in the Jewish sense that they snipped his dick. And by the way, the moils suck on the penis. Did you know that? I just learned about this recently. There is they lap up the I don't want to get into it. It's too gross to even talk about. But I guess the Orthodox Jews still do it, and it should stop. Yeah, it should stop. I mean, they're not doing it in a sexual manner. Apparently, the belief is that the saliva from the moil helps stop the bleeding, but doesn't a Band-Aid also? Or an alcohol wipe, perhaps? Anyway, happy birthday to Owen. He doesn't listen to this podcast, so I don't know why I'm addressing it to him. But on the off chance that anybody knows him, tell him that I said happy birthday. I talked to him this morning. We sang happy birthday. We sent him some cupcakes and some money. And then we're going to be there in 2 weeks, week and a half, to hang out. He's going to come see my stand-up show. It's very weird. It's very weird because my son has only seen me do stand-up, I think, twice in my life. So I feel a little bit nervous. Yeah, nervous is a good word and I don't know why. He fully accepts me, I think, as a father. I don't think he's got any big qualms with me. I mean, if you were to ask me when I was 22 how I felt about my dad, we'd talk for a little while. But I don't drink. I don't smoke. I never hit him. I'm around. I was around. Now he left me. I think he's good. I think we're good. But at the same time, you want your son to look up to you. And it's not like most dads bring their son to work and bring them in the middle. Here's what it would be, is if I was an office manager and I brought my son to work on just a Wednesday morning for the Wednesday morning staff meeting, and I run the meeting, and my son is sitting there while I assign people work. People ask me hard questions that I have to answer. I have to problem solve. I've got to show experience. I have to show, what's the word? All those things you have to be as a man. What do I know about being an office manager? I've never worked a day in my life. But I would imagine that there's a lot of pressures when you have a job. I certainly know they expect you to show up every day, which is fucking weird. And like 5 days a week and year after year to the same place. And they don't give you a hotel, and there's no free drinks, and nobody wants autographs at the end of your workday. I can't imagine a job like that. That sounds desperate. That sounds like you'd get bored really fast and try to think of another career where people wanted to, be your best friend or have sex with you or buy you things after your show. Doesn't that seem like a better way to make a living? Anyway, assume that I'm an insurance company middle manager, and I've got a problem, and I bring my son to work, and my son decides whether or not I'm competent, whether or not I'm a fraud, based on what he sees in that meeting. And that's what I'm getting. My son is seeing me do what I do, but I normally do it on the road. I'm nowhere near him. I'm in fucking Bozeman, Montana, or Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever. And he's at home, and daddy comes home. He hands mom a check, and then we all hang out. And instead, I'm going to be at a theater in Chicago. Come on down, by the way, October 15th to the Den Theater. And he's going to be sitting in the audience with his roommates and his friends from college. And my wife is flying in because we're making it's parents' weekend, so it just timed out well that I booked the theater the same weekend. That's actually not far from his school, and we're going to be. He's going to be at the show, and I don't want him seeing me do material I've done because the second time he saw me. The first time was at the Denver Comedy Works, which is my second favorite club in the country. It's a fucking crazy good club where you kill. And it was sold out. It was Saturday night. And afterwards, he said to me, and he was probably about maybe 16 or so. And he said to me, we left to go get a slice of pizza after the show. My wife and daughter didn't come. And he said to me, that's the hardest I've laughed for an hour in my entire life. He goes, that was, and I mean, it was almost like weird because it was weird hearing my son say things that fans say to me. It throws off the whole dynamic of the son really not being impressed with their father. Sons don't show their father that they're impressed very much. They're kind of, you're kind of not on the list of people that they're even looking to be blown away by. And so it was weird and it was awkward because I didn't want to feel that disparity in the power structure of I've always not that we're friends, but I don't want to be some guy who does something that's that crazy good to him because that's weird. I don't know. It's hard to explain. And then the second time he saw me was at an outdoor show during the pandemic at a golf course. And he liked it, but then he said, so how does it work? So you guys do some of the same jokes again? And I'm like, yeah, sometimes we repeat jokes. And I felt really embarrassed. He just thought that I go up there and I just talk and I say funny things. And I thought he understood how comedy worked more than that. But anyway, so now he's going to see me again. And so I'm very wary of doing all new material that he hasn't seen. And also I want to kill. And I guess I should talk about him. I think I'll roast him in front of his friends. That'll be good. That'll be a good move. But it's interesting. And he watched me do my radio show when he was a kid. He would come in. He met Bob Saget and Dave Navarro. All these people would come over the house. Zach Galifianakis, he knows really well from coming over the years. And and that's normal to him. And it was normal to me when I grew up in New York. My dad was a radio guy, and I used to go watch him do his radio show. He would bring me in with him sometimes, and I would sit and watch him do his radio show. And I remember one time it was like a Saturday, which was weird. He didn't usually have shows on Saturday, but he brought me in, and so he wanted the other DJ to take me out to breakfast because we hadn't eaten. And so this guy, Jonathan Schwartz, who you can look him up, he's like the guy that kind of helped bring Sinatra back on WNEW AM in New York back in the 70s. He brought back Sinatra. Sinatra had kind of faded a little bit. And so he was this big deal radio guy in New York, and he had a radio show that played mostly Sinatra. I forget what it was called. Make Believe Ballroom? No, I forget what it was called, but he had a show. And so he took me out, and he was funny. He was really funny. And we sat at the counter of a diner in New York City, and I was probably, I don't know how old I was, probably like 10. And I remember there was a homeless guy sitting next to him, and the homeless guy looked away, and Jonathan reached over and he grabbed a bunch of fries off the guy's plate, and he started eating them. So anyway, so I watched my dad do his radio show, and I was always amazed by how he could just talk into a microphone and that he could make a living from it. He was definitely on a pedestal to me. And I don't think I ever wanted to be on that pedestal with my son because I found it to create a distance between my father and I. My father and me and my father. And so I think I've gone out of my way to not that, look, believe me, No one's put me on any pedestals. I'm not a pedestal guy. I'm a comic who has crawled his way to the middle, and I'm staying right there. Nobody's trying to pretend Greg Fitzsimmons is a big deal. I am honored that you listen to my podcast. I'm flattered and appreciative that you come to my stand-up shows. But I had a taste of what being a big deal is this past week in Austin, and I ain't that. But even in this smaller sense, for a child to see their father, like I see my father, people would ask him for autographs and stuff a lot when I was a kid. And that was always weird to me. I didn't like it. I really didn't. And it just made me feel like he wasn't a normal guy. And certainly people have come up and asked me for selfies and stuff in front of my son. It happens pretty regularly, but not so much that I think it's super weird because he sees that I'm driving a Prius. So that grounds everything. My dad drove a Lincoln Continental. He was playing into the whole thing. So anyway, so now my son has a radio show in Chicago. He has a radio show on DePaul University's radio station, which was rated the #1 college radio station in the country last year. Or that's what he told me. And so it's a big deal. And he's got this show on Sunday nights. You can download the DePaul app and listen to his show if you want to. It's a pretty good app. It's on at, I want to say, fuck, we didn't listen last night. God damn it. It's on at 6 o'clock on Sunday nights on the West Coast. And we love listening to it. It's great music. Him and his roommate are very cool. They do like a podcasty kind of an experience. And it's so weird that this is the third generation to have a radio show in this family. I don't know if he'll continue doing it. He seems to enjoy it. I think it's a great experience, whether he follows up on it or not. But it's giving him a chance to go see concerts in Chicago, because when you work on any radio station, they just give you credentials to any show you want to see. So he's like, Dad, I talked to him today. He's like, Dad, I got 26 concerts lined up for this year. That's his plan. We'll see how many he makes it. And also a chance to interview the musicians, depending on how big they are. Some of them are willing to talk to a college radio station. And so he's excited about that. And he's learning about production and all the stuff that comes along with doing a radio show. So it's cool. And he's a cool kid. He really is. He's just an amazing kid. He's super chill. He's a great listener. He's very emotionally intelligent, extremely emotionally intelligent. He can hang with adults. He asks questions. He's curious. He's funny. He knows what's funny. Everybody wants to be his friend. He's like, I don't know. People just fall in love with him. And he's leading an exciting life. He was in Cuba for two or 3 weeks this spring. He toured around Europe with his friends after he graduated. He goes down to surfing trips and in this this cabin down in Mexico that his friend's family owns. They drive down there and for like a week, and they surf, and he does a lot of cool stuff. And I really love him. And he's fucking really good looking too. He's got a lot going for him. I don't worry about this kid in life. He's going to do just fine. As his sister will do just fine. But she's still a teenager. But with him, I'm seeing that this is like the man he's going to be. And I joke that like he's majoring in anthropology, which is the study of how to live off your father for the rest of your life. But I just make that joke. But the truth is, I think he's actually a communications major now, and I don't think he's going to live off me for very long. I hope to live off him. Wouldn't that be nice if I could live off him when I'm old? Wouldn't that be? How nice would it be to have a fucking uber successful child? Or would it be castrating? I think some dads might have a hard time with that. I don't know. I know the first time I beat my dad in golf, he didn't take it well. It was not a good day in our relationship. So it could be Oedipal. So What else? He's taking a class. He told me today he's taking a class in wine tasting. So Wednesday night's not a good night to talk because he's usually drunk because they do wine tasting. I bust my ass. I go to fucking Lowell, Arkansas to do shows, and I eat cheap to save money to send him to college so he can take wine tasting classes? Are you fucking kidding me? Don't even tell me that. I don't even know his GPA. He's been in school this is his 4th year, and I have no idea what his grades are. I just don't check. He doesn't offer, and I don't check. I assume he's doing okay. Anyway, good kid. Happy birthday, Owen. I was just reading in the paper now that after the hurricane in Florida, guess what they're doing? They need workers. And guess what kind of workers they're getting? They're getting migrant workers. Where are they getting them? From up north. How are they getting them? They're flying them in and promising them good wages. Sound familiar? But the opposite of what was happening a few weeks ago? So now Florida needs the migrants. Oh boy, not getting rid of them anymore. Need their expertise in construction and their hard work ethic and the fact that they could be exploited. That whole thing was so fucking crazy. The Republicans are flying Latinos around more than Aeromexico these days. They are, it's like the gold rush. They're being promised jobs and good wages and a place to live. And these poor motherfuckers, you got these people that are coming from, countries like Venezuela where they're escaping gang violence and they're coming to the U.S., which is supposed to be a beacon of hope for people. That's what this country set out to be, a place to come. And a lot of these migrants that were here that got shipped, that are getting shipped off under false circumstances, are being promised shit that doesn't exist, and they're being used as pawns. They have miserable lives. It is. Why are you fucking with them? Shoot higher than that. Come on. What the fuck? I did laugh when they sent him to the vineyard, but only because the joke was on them. The vineyard's actually a pretty diverse place. Obama has a place in the vineyard. There's been black people there since the 19th century. It's been a place where I think it's Oaks Bluff is a neighborhood of Martha's Vineyard that has a very strong, thriving black community that's been around for a long time. So there, you didn't do your research, DeSantis. These guys are fucking crazy. Anyway, I'm not going to get political. People hate when we do politics. But I know that I was just in Austin where the politics are very different than they are here in California. I was there and got into a lot of good, constructive discussions with some people that feel differently about certain things than me. I learned some things. I fact-checked some things. Some of the things they said were right. Some were wrong. I hope that they also heard me. You don't know. But I did Kill Tony. I flew in. I went to Austin on Monday. I did Kill Tony on Monday night. And that was a blast. Nick Swartzen got up and did a set. Dr. Drew was there. Dave Attell was there. He came up and he was one of the judges with me. And then this one comic came up, this goofy looking dude. He had like a big bird's nest looking hairdo, crazy white afro, and a giant, one of the biggest noses I've ever seen in my life. And he walked up to the microphone, and you get 2 minutes on Kill Tony. And he went, or a minute 45 maybe even. And he got up to the microphone, and there was a little bit of laughter at his appearance. And he just made a slight smirk of not a smirk. He made a grimace, and they laughed more. And then he did an eye roll, and they laughed more. And the guy did a 2-minute set without saying a single word, and then got a standing ovation. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I wish I knew the guy's name. I should say his name, but so you could listen to him on Spotify. I'm kidding. He doesn't talk. No, he does talk. But Tony interviewed him, and he still didn't talk. And then eventually he said like one word and then got off the stage. It was pretty cool. There was a woman that got up who's a stripper and also a comedian. She was pretty funny. Yeah. There was a bunch of good comics. It was fun. And then there was a good hang afterwards. Duncan Trussell was around with his wife. She's very cool. Got to talk to her for a long time. He lives there. I guess Duncan has moved to Austin with the rest of them. So there's like Tim Dillon. I don't know if Tim Dillon still lives there or not. I think he moved back to LA, but maybe he still has a place in Austin. Joe's Club is supposed to open in January, and that's going to be a good place to do comedy as 2 stages, building it for the comedians. And then the next morning I got up and I did Tom Segura's podcast. It was two bears, one cave. Bert's not around, so I filled in as the fat drunk. That was me. That was my role. And we had a blast. I fucking love Tom. There's just no easier guy to hang with. You just sit and shoot the shit. It's not like a podcast, and all of a sudden it's over, and you're like, what happened? That was an hour and a half? And his studio he's built this beautiful new studio. It's so light and modern and nice. It's got a conference room and offices and multiple studios, and he's got a fleet of people working for him. And look, hey, Fitzdog Studios, I think you can take a look around Fitzdog Studios and know, look, I'm not wanting for much. But they say compare and despair, right? Compare and despair. My office is the size of, like, one of his producer's offices, of which there are many. But, again, I want to be in the middle. I like it here. Does that sound like a justification? Do I sound like I'm trying to talk my way out of this? So we had fun, and then that night I did a show at the Vulcan, which is a rock club in Austin, and it was Attell. Did Attell go up that night? I can't remember if Attell went up, but we did a killer show. Brian was there. Why do I always forget Brian's last name? Brian, a black guy, just did a Netflix special. Brian Simpson. He is fucking funny. He's been on my podcast, so I especially should know his name. But he's one of my favorite new comics. Whenever anybody says who's new and good, I always say, watch out for Brian Simpson. He's going to be huge. He did sets. Tony was hilarious. There was a bunch of people. Hans Kim performed. And then Joe closed it out. So it was a good hang in the green room. And of course, the green room there, they've got they cater it. They have fresh food. They have an open bar. There's a joint being passed the entire time. Everybody wants to ask you if you want anything. And they run the club really well. It's a blast. And then what did I do the next day? What the fuck did I do the next day? I had to do my own podcast. I did my childish podcast that day. And then we recorded Sunday Papers, and then I did another show anyway, leading up to the highlight of the week, which is, of course, doing Rogan's podcast on Thursday, which I came in and did, and we did the usual. It was 3 hours of talking and laughing and hanging out, had a blast. Now, I'm not the guy that goes on and gets famous from the Joe Rogan Experience. I've done it. That was my 22nd time on the podcast. I know. I should be headlining theaters. But I'm more of just, I guess, a good hang. I've done the Howard Stern show 50-something times. I don't know. I guess people kind of like me. But nobody loves me. And that's fine. My family loves me. God, this has become a desperate podcast. I think when I come back from Austin, I feel a little less than. And maybe it's also that everybody's driving fucking $200,000 sports cars and, oh, man. Driving a Prius. I drive a fucking Prius. I love it. It's good on gas. Yeah, I got Sirius XM in it. And these beaded seats. It's great. So I did Rogan's show, and then we did it for 3 hours, and then we went, and we always shoot pool afterwards. And it's so weird because I don't know if he's got a clock on his desk, but our podcast is always exactly 3 hours, and then we always play pool for exactly 3 hours. And we crank tunes, and we laugh, and we smoke some pot, and then he asked me, he goes, "What are you doing this weekend?" And I go, I don't know, I got a couple spots back in LA, nothing big. And he's like, "You want to get on a private jet tomorrow and fly to Atlanta and do a 6,000 seat theater for 2 nights?" I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. So we flew off. Hans Kim came with us. And we stayed in Atlanta, which I love. Atlanta is just a city with... It's a cool vibe. It's the most truly integrated city, I think, in the country. Black people there are beautiful, successful, cool, and there's no I stayed at the Four Seasons, and most of the people staying there were black. You don't see that at most Four Seasons, and the staff is almost all black. And just you walk through any part of the city, it's not like some cities where there's black areas and there's white areas. It's kind of it's all mixed. It's kind of beautiful. And I have good friends there. I saw my friends Pete Scott and Dudley, who were my roommates in college. And they're Mike Gibbons' friends. Mike Gibbons went to high school with them. And then I met them in college. And then there's like two of my best friends in the world for the last 30 years. So I got to hang out with them. They came out to the show. And Duds was bummed because we were going to meet up after the show. And he wanted to meet Joe, but he missed my text. And so we were out at some club. We were at the Four Seasons bar after the show. And he didn't get the text, so he didn't come by. But we met for lunch the next day. Anyway, is this a boring podcast? I don't have a guest, so I didn't really make much of a plan. But I hope you're enjoying the podcast. It seems like one where I'm having an existential career meltdown, but I'm really not. Things are going great. Got shows coming up. I hope you guys will come out and support the shows. I'll be in New Orleans this weekend. Thursday night, October 6th, at the Howlin' Wolf in New Orleans. The next night, Lafayette, Louisiana, which I heard is actually a very cool town. So I'm going to be there October 7th. I'm going to New Orleans a night early. So if anybody knows about anything going on October 5th, I got the whole night free. Maybe I'll meet you for a drink. Hit me up at fitzdog@gmail.com. And then San Francisco Punchline, November 3rd to the 5th. Tampa Side Splitters, November 17th through 19th. Then I'm coming to the Rodeo Cinema in Oklahoma City and Fort Worth, Texas. Those are in December. Go to fitzdog.com for all your ticket needs and desires and loves. Saw my boy Adam Egat, who's out there. He's booking Rogan's Club. He used to be the booker at the Comedy Store. We went out and saw that college football or that pro football game on Thursday night, where the guy from Miami, the quarterback, went into fucking convulsions. His fingers were he got some kind of nerve damage in his brain, and we all watched it all around the country. It was disturbing. So I hope he's okay. What else happened? I did some stupid jokes. I don't always think about my set before I go on stage. I'm not really good at planning it out. And so I did this one joke. I said, "Is pot?" I didn't know if pot was legal. And they said, "No, pot's not legal here." And I said, "That's so weird because none of the states in the Deep South have legalized pot, like Mississippi, Texas, Florida. None of them have." And I go, "I guess they figured pot makes you kind of dumb and lazy and paranoid. And I guess you guys figured, we don't really need it." And nothing. I mean, not a fucking... And I just went, why did I tell that joke? And that sometimes I'll start a joke and I'll even be halfway through it. And then a light bulb goes off and I go, oh, this was a bad idea. Like I I've done jokes that are so filthy, but they start clean, and I'll be at a venue that I was supposed to do a clean set at, and then you can't bail. You still got to do the fucking joke. So I made a couple of those. Fucked that up a couple different ways. I was thinking today, if you grow up with horses, you were either really rich or you were really poor. There's nothing in the middle. There's no middle-class horse owners. You either are relying on them for work or you're relying on other people that are taking care of them so you can have fun on them. That's it. That's the whole thing. I was also thinking about, I was in the airport yesterday, and I went to the urinal when I got off my flight, and I'm urinating at the urinal, and there was a big piece of gum, and I just thought, who the fuck does that? What kind of piece of shit? Because anybody, if you're a janitor or a custodial engineer, whatever you want to call yourself, you got a tough lot. Everybody's job is tough in different ways. You know, I've got to sit alone in my office and try to think of things to talk about. That feels tough. It's not tough compared to probably your job. It's probably a lot easier. But the guy who has to mop up piss and who has to, wash out toilets, that's tougher than almost all of your jobs. It's not a great gig. And now you're going to make that gig worse by spitting gum in a urinal so that guy has to pick it out. There's a special place in hell for gum spitters at urinals. It is really the shittiest fucking person in the world who does it. And that's the same person that's like, oh, it's so uncool what the paparazzi do to the Kardashians. They should give celebrities a break and then spit in a urinal. You fuck. You should have to clean it out. If I ever see somebody spit gum in a urinal, I'm going to stop them. I'm going to put their face in the urinal, like in a good Reservoir Dogs type film, and I'm going to make them chew it out. Yeah. Queen's still dead. Premium memberships, don't forget to get them. Go to Fitzdog.com and get like 970 back episodes of the show. Also get your Grapefruit Simmons t-shirts on that very same website. And now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. I sometimes get stuck on the problem instead of the solution, as you might see talking about today. My mindset right now is not good, and I need to work on that. What's the problem? The problem is I'm feeling a little bit jealous. There's two things that can happen here. One is I can focus on my process and become more successful and feel good about that, or I can let go of comparing. These are things that I need help with. And a therapist can make you a better problem solver, can help me accomplish this goal. And that's what I'm going to bring up with my therapist this week. Meet with her tomorrow. Online, thanks to BetterHelp.com. I've been meeting with this amazing therapist for 2 years. Had great results. She's very cool. She's kind of earthy, crunchy, which I like, but a pro. And I needed it during the pandemic, but then I found other reasons to go back and to stay in it. There's always something you can challenge yourself with. And therapy should be a way that you can feel more like yourself. You can feel less stressed, more confident. There's so many things I get out of it. If you're thinking about giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. Convenient, accessible, affordable. It's cheaper than regular therapy. When I say regular, I mean like going in person and doing all that shit. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey. You can switch therapists if you're not enjoying your therapist, if you're not finding good results. No harm, no foul. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/Fitzdog today to get 10% off your first month. That's a good deal. That's BetterHelp.com/Fitzdog. Do it. Get involved with your own mental health. All right, let's do some mail. If you ever want to email me, it's fitzdog@gmail.com, and I read everything, respond to everything. Not everything. I guess if somebody's rude to me, I certainly ignore that. I learned that in therapy, that I don't need to engage that person. This one comes from Chris Wojek. I'm a livery. Is it livery or livery? Because it's delivery, so I guess it's livery driver, based in New Haven, Connecticut. Is it Connecticut or is? And have always had good luck picking up Breeze passengers. I mentioned recently that I purchased my flight to New York on Breeze because I've crawled my way to the middle. And so we don't know. It's a new airline. They could suck. They could be good. But this guy's saying, I assume. Oh, if you need, I assume your sister might be picking up from the airport. But if you need a car service, let me know. I have a couple of really good guys who do Uber and Lyft down there, or do cash work for much cheaper. That sounds like a lot of legwork. Can't I just hit the app on my phone? They're generally good. It's more the Breeze thing I'm worried about. But he says that he's always, everybody speaks highly of them. So we'll see. A lot of people commenting on the Leslie Jones podcast. If you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. Wow, that was an amazing podcast for those able to follow it at different levels. Okay, thank you. Somebody else said, dear God, I've been listening for about 4 years now. That Leslie Jones podcast had me crying, laughing. Thanks for all you do. Please don't stop. And yes, I'm a white middle-aged guy in the Midwest and think she is absolutely a gem for our society. Okay, I'll tell her. Lenny, and then this guy, Joanne said, who was the guy on that pod? Leslie's friend. He has not been introduced as of yet. I apologize. I forgot to introduce Lenny Marcus, who is Leslie's co-host on her podcast. He sat in with us. I've known him for a long time. He's a really good stand-up comic, and he produces her podcast and hosts it with her. So shout out to Lenny Marcus. And then some people upset. John Favreau says, yes, Greg, exciting is how I described the last episode of House of Dragons. May I say, I've been shitting on House of Dragons. May I suggest you have been too harsh and impatient. Boo-hoo, you need more dragons. What are you, 10? Oh, wait, you're a comedian. Of course you're 10. That's why we love you. All right. He said, let it be known that the incest, the dragons, and the excitement were back in full force this week. Try to give it another shot. John Favreau. All right, I'm going to give it one more week. But then that's it. I didn't like the cast change. I was very upset. Me and Joe talked about it. It was, I had just gotten to know that cast and liked them, and then they get replaced. It's like when they replace the Weekend Update guys. You know, don't do it. Don't do it that often. Okay, and then we got some overheards. This comes from Baval. I don't know what kind of name Baval is. Great overheard from me and my wife. Me at Rogan in Atlanta. Holy shit, it's Fitzdog. Oh my God, he's one of my favorite comedians. Had no idea he would be here. She then said, what the fuck is a Fitzdog? Exactly. Exactly the theme of this podcast. Thank your wife for me. Well, hopefully she's now a fan. Can we count her in? Jim Duchesne said, who is a humor columnist, he wants you to know, for Desert Exposure magazine. He said in the David Sedaris audiobook, Carnival of Snackery, one of the lines is, you're so lazy you'd shit the bed and push it out with your foot. There are nights where I could see doing that. In my drinking days, I would absolutely shit the bed and kick it out, assuming it was hard, which if I was drinking was not a good bet. Keith Lewis said, while walking through a Lowe's home improvement store just outside of Atlanta, I overheard part of a conversation between two female Lowe associates. Associate number one says to associate number two, see, I told you. You all are lucky God didn't give me a dick. You all are lucky God didn't give me a dick. Well, he did. Maybe. Check your bedside table. You might have a dick in there. Never know. All right, so I'm off. I am off to go home and cook some salmon for my wife. She has a new baby. She's a doula, and she just got a brand new baby yesterday that she's helping the woman breastfeed and sleep and all that stuff. So she's very happy. She loves when she gets a new baby. And I'm going to cook some dinner, and then we're going to watch one episode of this House of Dragons, and we'll see. And then we're going to watch another episode. I started in on that Jeffrey Dahmer show. We watched 2 episodes last night, and I was disturbed. So maybe we'll watch that one first, and then House of Dragons later, where I can come down with some good family-friendly incest. Okay, well, thank you guys for listening. Thanks, as always, to Midcoast Media, who do a great job producing the show. Key and John and Beth and everybody else over there who does a great job. Chris Denman. So we'll see you guys next week with my guest. I think my guest next week is TJ Miller. Yes. So look forward to that. Okay. God bless. God bless America. I haven't said that in a while.